Okay. Well, hello. Today we have the wonderful, exciting, dynamic Becky Dieter. She's from Compassionate Senior Guidance, and she's going to be telling us all about her business today and how she can help seniors and their families. Hi, Becky. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, great. So, we also have my business partner, Brian, here. Hi, Brian.
Hello, how are you, Joelle?
Okay. So, tell us, Becky, how did you get into helping seniors? What compelled you to get into this line of work?
Well, it's a little different way to get there. I actually was a lawyer and HR director by trade.
Wow.
And but then have a very typical Florida story. I was living in Colorado and my parents were in Florida.
Mm.
So like a lot of the folks we work with, I was that out-of-state kid, trying to help take care of my parents. My dad developed congestive heart failure, went through a series of surgeries, not even related to that. It became clear that my parents needed some help. My dad was 6'3" and my mom 5'4". So not the best caregiving dynamics there. So I ended up quitting my job and being thrown into the world of senior care that, like most of us, I knew nothing about.
Right.
And became a caregiver, doing hands-on care myself, brought in home health, learned about long-term care insurance, got powers of attorney in place, and then had to bring in hospice.
May I
Uh,
ask you a question?
sure.
Your parents were sick and then you got insurance? Were you able to get them
No,
insurance?
they hadn't
Oh, they had it.
utilized their long-term care insurance. I knew
Okay.
nothing about long-term care insurance.
Okay.
I learned a lesson.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, how important it is to have it because we
Yeah.
were able to utilize it for my dad's caregivers.
Can
Um,
you, I know it's not your area of expertise, but you can just talk a little bit about what long-term care is since we
sure.
touched on it. I want people to know what that is.
In my arena, so I help people find senior living. In my arena, it helps extend people's money. One of the most common misconceptions that I face on a regular basis is, oh, well, Medicare will pay for that, or Medicaid will pay for that. People don't all qualify for Medicaid. There's a limit in Florida what Medicaid will pay. But it's really important that people realize Medicare does not pay for long-term care. And that's what we're talking about when somebody's moving to assisted living or memory care, or getting aides into the home on a continuous basis. That's long-term care. That's not, at least right now, not covered by Medicare. So long-term care insurance bridges that gap and will provide a daily rate that can provide money towards aides, assisted living, and memory care. The important thing is they're all very different. So I always encourage my folks, if they have long-term care, they're getting ready to use it, call and make sure they're clear on what it covers, how much it covers. There's also an elimination period, which is a period of time that you have to private pay until that insurance kicks in. Tends to be 90 days. Sometimes there are things that can waive that elimination period. So important to have. And if you have it, important to ask the questions so that you know what the coverage is. Because I knew nothing about it. And because of it, now I have it, I see how much it helps.
Right.
And I see how difficult it is for people financially when they don't have it.
Sure. I mean, this is really exciting because you really dig deep. You're not in on the surface to helping people. You're going real deep to make sure you're getting every benefit and financial consideration that you can get for people, which is a really wonderful thing.
Correct. Just like veterans, there's aid and attendance benefit that people can qualify for, and a spouse can qualify for. So I'm very conscious when I'm working with families looking for senior living of their budget. I don't want to show people places that aren't going to fit in their budget.
Well, sure, then you fall in love with something and you can't afford it. It's just like being a real estate agent. You don't want to take people to
Exactly.
a house that they can't afford.
Exactly. And I also want to not blow the budget completely because care needs are going to increase over time.
Right,
So we want to leave some money in the budget. If $6,000 the top of their budget, I really don't want to spend $6,000 because I want them to have a cushion because A, they're going to be increases, and B, their needs are going to increase over time, chances are.
right. Right.
Unless we already have somebody that's towards end of life. So those are all factors that I look at, as opposed to here, let's just go see all these places in the area. That's not a good use of my client's time, the community's time, and it doesn't really benefit them if it's not really going to be the right fit all the way around. And
Right.
finances is just one piece of the puzzle. So I do delve somewhat into that to make sure we're in a comfortable place that way. Yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic. Is there like a success story that you want to tell us about that our audience could sort of see it in play a little bit?
Well, I think, one of the things that I face a lot is memory care situations. And those are probably the most difficult situations that I deal with because it's so hard on the families.
Right.
It's hard on the families because mom or dad are not the same person anymore. Particularly if mom or dad is still high functioning, but they still need the safety and security of memory care, or they need that specialized care to help them with agitation or behaviors and things. And so some of my successes are helping families deal with that situation. Going into a memory care for the first time is really difficult for families, especially if their loved one is still higher functioning. One of the things that I do is help people look for people that look like mom or dad. So instead of just being glazed over, and they tend to focus on the people that are further in the journey that maybe
Right.
don't look like mom or dad. What I do is I go in and look for the opposite. And then I'll say to them, look, see the woman over there? She looks like your mom. See the gentleman over there? Looks like your dad, to try and help them see folks that are more like mom or dad, as opposed to the ones that aren't. Because it's a very difficult experience for families.
It's traumatic. Your
Yes.
loved one, losing their memory is really a very, very difficult on everybody. But I love the way that you um, help the family. You're really helping the family cope with this transition by changing their um, what a typical mindset would be, right? You go
Right.
into these communities and you start thinking, well, my parent doesn't look like that. That person looks really old. My mom may not be old. She's vibrant. She's whatever. And you're flipping that on its head and helping them change their perspective to see people there that are like their parent, so that that transition can be a little bit less traumatic for everybody.
Right.
That's really amazing what you're doing.
Thank you. I mean, the other thing is sometimes folks will develop behaviors, agitation, obsessive loops and things that the families will not realize are normal's not really the word, commonplace for folks with dementia.
Mhm.
And so they'll be embarrassed to talk about it with the communities. And what I push my families to do is say, we need to lay out everything on the table, good, bad, and ugly. Because I would rather a community say, no, we can't manage this person, than have them move in, find out about things, and 10 days later, they get a 45-day notice to leave.
So I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I do hear these stories more often than I would think, about people that they move 2, 3 times. And that has got to be, listen, if you don't have a memory issue, it's hard to move 2 or 3 times. So with a memory issue and a family that's dealing with it and a family that may not be local, it's got to be just so difficult. So tell me what, it seems that you're a little bit different than maybe some other services out there that do the same thing. How are you different? Because I see that you're different,
Mhm.
but maybe you can put it in your own words for our audience. I don't
I
want to put words in
think,
your mouth.
I think a big part of it is I really focus on fit. And where are mom and dad going to fit and have the best chance to be successful? And that's different for every person. So a common question I get is, well, what's your favorite place? What's the best memory care? What's the best? And the former lawyer in me gives that legal answer of, it depends.
Well, but that's the right answer.
It really depends, on my client, the budget. In particular, when you're looking at memory care, each census or group of residents is different in each place. So one place at the moment may have more higher functioning people than another place. And so I try to keep tabs on that. And I don't have a problem going into a place. We look and the family goes, no. And I agree with you. This isn't, at this moment, this is not the right fit.
Right.
And I make a point of telling people, I'm not beholden to any one community. That's the beauty of it. I want you to find the right fit. So if there's something you don't like, tell me, because it helps me understand better what you're looking for. Because to your point, I don't want to move people more than once.
Right.
It's hard enough for anybody to move, whether it's assisted living, whether it's memory care. I don't want folks moving again.
Right.
So I'm going to do my darndest to try and get it right. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes things change, sometimes it doesn't work. But also part of it is making sure that the family has realistic expectations going into this. Whether it's assisted living or memory care, I'm very clear, this is not going to be one-on-one care. Whether it's assisted, whether it's memory, and even if they decide to look at skilled nursing, it's never going to be one-on-one care.
Right.
So you have to be really clear with those expectations. Yes, it's 24-hour available care, meaning you can push a button and somebody will come help. Are they going to come that second? No. Are they going to come in a reasonable time? Yes. So part of it is sometimes families go into this with unrealistic expectations. And so, well, they're not doing what I thought they would do. And then they move their loved one again. So my philosophy, if somebody calls me and they need to move their loved one, whether it's somebody I worked with previously or just somebody else, I'm going to try and understand what's not going right at that community. Is it going to be different moving to another community?
Right.
If I don't think it
expectation, right.
Exactly. I'm going to tell the family and I'm going to coach them. If I'm not hearing something egregious, I'm going to coach them how to have a conversation with that community to maybe work through some of the issues that they're having. Or maybe help them understand that if that's what you want, you're going to have to hire a private aid.
Right.
Because that's just not realistic. So my first, thought is not, well, let's move this person, let's get them out of there. Unless, again, if there's something egregious or something I hear clearly that warrants that. But hey, do you like the community other than this issue, whatever it is? Yeah, I really like it. Well,
Let's figure it out.
Exactly. And sometimes it's just coaching people how to approach the conversation instead of saying, why didn't my mom get a shower? Why is my dad in his pajamas? Help me understand what's going on with my mom and her showers.
Right.
That when you phrase it that way, the community doesn't automatically get defensive, and then you can have better communication about things.
Yeah, it's so difficult when it's your loved one and you in your perspective, they aren't getting what you think they should get, to not have that, defensive, like, why isn't this needs to be done? I want it done now, blah, blah, blah. And then, it's the old adage, you get more bees with honey.
Bees with honey. And I use
Right.
that phrase, Joelle, exactly. And I mean, there's two sides to every story too. I mean, that's something that my legal background, my HR background has taught me to be cautious of. An example is a client I worked with called me all upset. Daughter called me all upset because dad hadn't had a shower and was in his pajama top when mom came. Well, go back, come to find out from the community, it wasn't a good shower day for him, which happens with folks with cognitive issues. So they showered him the next day. The pajamas, come to find out, mom had bought him these new pair of pajamas, and he thought that the top was a shirt, and he had specifically put it on himself for her to see.
Oh,
So I try to help people understand, get the community side of the story. You're not there.
right.
And do that in a way, then make your judgment before you go off,
Right.
on things, and put things in perspective. If something's not right in the room, how is the care? Is mom happy? So kind of help people put things in perspective and see
Right.
what's going right, because to your point, a lot of times people jump on what's wrong.
Right. Well, of course, you're in a heightened state because
Mhm.
especially if you're not in the area physically,
Absolutely. I mean, the
there's
guilt,
that guilt too, that you're not there, right? So you might be overcompensating a little bit.
exactly. And that's totally understandable. And I'll tell people that I understand the guilt and how you feel. And I encourage them and say, you are doing the best you can
Sure.
with the situation. And sometimes we hear, oh, I wish I had known, I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that. And I stop them and I say, you did the best you could in that moment in time with the information you had. Let's focus on what we need to do to move forward. Now, you may have different information and make different decisions. That's okay. Let's
Right.
just focus on moving forward.
Right. You can only deal with the information that you have at the particular point in time. That's all you can
Exactly. Exactly.
I really love the sense that I'm getting from you about this is not for you a one and done. You meet a family, they have to go to a care community, you place them in a care community, and then unless you hear from them, you're done. I get the sense that you stay in touch with with the families, with the patient, not the patients, with the clients. That's my social work background from the hospital. And that you really have like continuum of care with the people that you serve, which is probably not, I would imagine, typical of everybody in the same industry.
Right. I want people to feel like they can call me anytime with questions or concerns that they're having. Sometimes I go visit, not necessarily memory care, but sometimes my assisted living or independent living folks, I'll go visit them, bring them flowers because
Oh,
they're excited to show off their new place.
that's sweet.
And it is, I check in with them afterwards. I'll check in with them before things. How are things going? Is there anything you need? Check in with them afterwards. And then, like I said, sometimes things may not be going well, and I want them to be able to call me and we'll kind of talk through it. And majority of the times we can work through it.
Mhm.
And that's what I try to do, but I want them to feel like they can call me even after the fact and talk about how things are going or what's going on.
So you're real boots on the ground here, physically available to help people, which, I know that's not always the case. And I think it's important for people to know you want somebody that has boots on the ground, that knows these facilities, that has relationships with these communities, that can, you're doing tours in the community for somebody else and you can go visit a family that and check in on them. That's really paramount. And I would imagine that would make an adult child have a sense of comfort, since they are not there, that you're there and you're sort of, checking in occasionally.
Right. I mean, and we hear things about communities. There may be a change in management or a change in nursing staff or something like that that may cause us to pull back from a community for a little bit. So you know, there are communities sometimes that we may not work with for a little bit, just because I want to feel comfortable with that community, which is why I want feedback from my clients.
Sure.
So if something is going on or going wrong in a community, I need to know that in terms of working with future clients and considering that community.
So also like really having your ear to the ground of knowing what's going on, what's coming down the pike. Because we also have a lot of new communities popping up constantly because, you know, there's the need. So you
Right.
really know what's happening, who those people are, who they're hiring, if they've worked someplace else. I think that's
Right.
that's invaluable.
Yeah, there are a lot of changes that go on in this industry of staff. And so it is really important to try and keep tabs on all of that. And the other thing in terms of boots on the ground is I don't send my folks off to tour on their own. I go with them. I set up the tours for them. I'm that contact. I'm that buffer for them so that salespeople call me to follow up and not my client. And I tour with them because I have information about the senior that can help with that tour. There are questions that families don't think to ask or don't know to ask, or things that I can ask a salesperson to highlight. Hey, can you please talk about your outside activities, because that's something her mom would be very interested in. Can you please talk about, you know, your memory care director, because she's fantastic. So I can help them highlight certain things that the family just coming in might not notice, might not hear about, or know to ask about, and can point out things that I think are relevant to their loved one when we tour, as opposed to them just going in by themselves.
Right. That's fantastic.
I
Really.
encourage them too, when they're narrowing it down. Again, not as much for memory care, but say assisted living or independent living, to, after the first brush, go back to the one or two that you've narrowed down and have a meal or go to a happy hour or come to an activity, because seeing the residents and mingling with them can make a huge difference sometimes.
I think that's really wonderful. Go ahead, Brian.
You know, I'm thinking back to my mom and my dad, and man, I wish I would have known you then. Um, you know, I can tell you as you know, a child who went through all this with parents, I had no clue what I was doing, none whatsoever. And you know, you feel like you're thrown into like this vacuum almost, and you know, here it comes.
Right.
And my mother was a challenging person, God rest her soul. She actually had a great time in this facility. She just didn't want me to know that. So, you know,
Not uncommon.
yeah. Yeah. And so I went through the aid and attendance and everything you're describing. So I'm just thinking, how do people find you? I didn't even know there was such a thing, and many people may not even know there is an opportunity to speak with someone as knowledgeable and caring as you are, Becky.
Right. People don't know senior living advisors exist. You know, that's one of our issues. It's not like, okay, we know accountants exist, we know realtors exist, but people don't even know senior living advisors exist. So a lot of my referrals will come from former clients, home health companies, real estate folks, people in the industry, because people aren't Googling for senior living advisor. You know, I wish they would, and we want to tell people senior living advisor. we're out there, because I hear a lot what you're saying. I wish I'd known.
Yeah. I mean, it's an invaluable service.
Mhm.
And again, most people have no clue,
Mhm.
just no clue that there is such a thing, and that's such a shame. And
Yeah.
I hope our podcast, whoever's listening to this
Right.
podcast or watching it, share this, because
Yes,
this is really, really critical information that really, I don't know what the stat is, so I'm not going to quote a statistic, but I'm going to bet 70% of us are going to have to deal with at some point in our lives,
Mhm.
whether it's our parents or our own, situation,
yeah,
Correct.
in the correct community.
Mhm.
So, really just wonderful. And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, what would I budget for your services?
that's the same.
My services are free. That's
Exactly.
the best part of what I do is I get paid by the communities. And the communities pay relatively the same across the board. So people worry sometimes, oh, you're pushing me to this community because none of that matters. The bottom line is the family, the senior pays nothing for my services. There's no upcharge. There's nothing. So that makes it even better.
It's a no-brainer.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean,
And
really, really a no-brainer.
Right.
If someone wanted to reach you, how would they do that?
There are two ways to reach me. One would be call me 561-629-9500. Unlike many lawyers, I do return calls. Um, so I will return calls despite the JD after my name. The other way to reach me is via email, and that's Becky at compassionateseniorguidance.com.
And I mean, it really, I guess, is just so. I'm so blown away by everything you shared. So critical. I really hope everyone got little nuggets here. I just got a big aha for myself on long-term care insurance.
Mhm.
Big deal.
Yeah.
And it's I can tell from your passion, Becky. You're passionate because you lived it, right?
Right.
And it's exactly why Joelle and I started our senior transition helpers and helping folks with the home and making that transition. You're obviously a key part of that, and the home is a big part of typically the financial part of this
Absolutely.
transaction. And so, I lived it. Joelle is living it,
Yep.
and
Mhm.
just so critical. What is your area of coverage, so to speak? Like, where
Okay.
are you really more honed in?
I work mainly in Palm Beach County, all the way up to Jupiter. I also do work in North Broward.
Mhm. Okay, that's
So
it's a
pretty
big
pretty
area,
broad. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
big area.
Right.
Okay,
Okay. Is
super.
there
So
anything that we missed that you wanted to tell us? Just make sure you didn't miss anything.
I don't think so. I
Okay.
don't think
Great.
so. We had a good chat.
I think so too. Brian?
yes, very valuable. I can't thank you enough for your time, Becky.
Thank you
Really
so much for having me. I
great
appreciate it.
having you here.
Thanks,
All right.
Becky.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.